Story 1. I don't think the Swedish language exists. I believe they just start making nonsensical noises at each other when they detect a non-Swede. Seriously, why do they all speak perfect English? Story 2. A number of extreme conspiracy theories were deliberately fabricated to obscure some of the more plausible ones. These outrageous theories, such as the idea that 5G technology can harm your brain or that vaccines cause autism, have created a link between questioning the official narrative and irrational behavior, making it difficult to challenge these notions. It's the theory about theories, so to speak. Story 3. One intriguing theory is that O.J. Simpson did not kill Nicole Brown or Ron Goldman. His son Jason did, taking the blame for the crime. Jason was known to have anger issues and was on probation for threatening a former employer with a knife. Nicole had canceled a dinner she was supposed to have with Jason. The hat that O.J. was wearing had dog fur on it. There is a picture of Jason wearing the same cap with his dog. This theory has truly made me think twice. Story 4. Disney made the movie Frozen to change the search results related to Walt Disney being allegedly frozen. Story 5. For example, I believe that phone microphones are constantly active and are listening for keywords to target advertising. Story 6. I have observed that larger pharmaceutical companies may suppress drugs from startup companies that are being researched because they threaten their market share for blockbuster drugs. In summary, the pharmaceutical industry often prioritizes profits over health. This awareness influences my perspective when I hear them speak and before I consider any medication. Story 7. That the Federal Bureau of Investigation and Central Intelligence Agency killed John F. Kennedy. There are too many instances of wow, isn't that convenient for them, and it involves numerous individuals who are politically and business connected, particularly in the oil industry, for it to not be true. Story 8. The Hindenburg disaster wasn't really an accident. It is also worth noting various things that were once labeled as conspiracy theories but have been shown to be true, such as the Central Intelligence Agency's mind control program. These items end up getting removed from the list of conspiracy theories, even though we should consider them as theories that turned out to be true. Story 9. Politicians do not hold any position except for their own self-interest. They constantly collaborate behind the scenes to maintain or increase their power. Everything done in public view is theatrical. Story 10. There is a theory that Lyme disease was created by the United States government on Plum Island, which is across the Sound from Lyme, Connecticut, and hosts a government-run animal infectious diseases research center. The theory suggests that there was an outbreak on the island, and one of the animals swam to Connecticut, leading to the spread of the disease. In the 1990s, I interned with a news crew covering a suspected outbreak of another disease, during which they had to euthanize all the animals that were free grazing on the island. It seems possible to me. Story 11. Something unusual occurred with the Kennedy assassination and the subsequent investigation that likely died with J. Edgar Hoover. None of the conspiracy theories truly fit, but the official narrative has at least as many flaws as the more subdued ones. Story 12. Perhaps there is no large organism controlling everything from the shadows. Maybe the truth is that most governments and large companies only control what is in their fields, not the whole world. Our reality and society are so fragile, easy to break and fall apart. Even a small COVID virus made us compete for food or toilet paper. Story 13. I would say that, although unlikely, the Vatican has a wealth of knowledge in its vaults that could advance society both technologically and socially. However, they may keep this knowledge hidden to maintain their religious power. It does seem somewhat plausible considering that the Church during the Middle Ages purposefully suppressed scientific advancements that contradicted religious beliefs, such as the understanding that the Sun is the center of the solar system rather than the Earth. Story 14. Epstein didn't kill himself. The Central Intelligence Agency killed Martin Luther King Jr. The Central Intelligence Agency and Federal Bureau of Investigation killed John F. Kennedy. The September 11th attacks were an inside job. There is a theory suggesting that the internet is becoming increasingly dead. Story 15. The chief executive officer of the voting machine company, Diebold, promised to deliver Ohio to George Bush in a public statement. After Bush won Ohio, an analysis of the precinct data found an unusual number of results ending in 7. It is well known that when humans attempt to randomly select numbers, they tend to pick too many sevens. The 2000 election was stolen. For additional context, I received my information directly in a conversation with Diffie. Story 16. The government promotes outrageous conspiracy theories to undermine legitimate theories in case anyone uncovers the truth. Story 17. Everything related to Epstein has a lot of plausibility. There are numerous theories regarding his death, trafficking rings involving the elite, and the blackmail of powerful individuals. Many sound fantastical, but he had too many connections to powerful people, was obviously a terrible person, and went unpunished for so long before his highly suspicious death. Most of these theories seem extremely feasible. I am particularly interested in his relationship with Elon Musk as my most outlandish conspiracy theory. Story 18. I think the Tuareg who confronted the Wagner mercenaries in Mali were at least trained by Ukraine. Perhaps the Ukrainians were even involved in the conflict. Story 19. Many companies, particularly in the IT and technology sectors, deliberately focus on the balance between functionality and inconvenience. They often make an effort to inconvenience customers to prevent competitors from gaining an advantage. Similar to the light bulb conspiracy around 1900, the market requires a constant demand for newer or more convenient products. As a result, older products are intentionally made less convenient to foster consumer demand. Additionally, technology and automobiles are capable of much more than what marketing often suggests, all to encourage the shift towards subscription models in today's market. Story 20. The FDA does not regulate toxic chemicals in our food because it collaborates with pharmaceutical companies that profit from our illness. Story 21. Many conspiracy theories turn out to be true because, surprisingly, people conspire all the time, both in significant and minor ways. Story 22. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Everything is very expensive these days. I have already convinced myself that I can't have it, so I'm happy I have no debt. Technically, this is the truth. Story 23. The moon landing was faked. NASA wanted it to be believable, so they hired Stanley Kubrick to handle it. As a perfectionist, he filmed on location. Story 24. The government has been covering up the existence of alien life and unidentified flying objects since at least the 1930s, and they have recovered intact craft and bodies of non-Earth origin. Story 25. The gold reserves of Germany, among others, are partially held in the United States since the Cold War. A few years ago, there was an initiative to return them, but it ultimately did not succeed. It is likely that the gold was sold long ago, as for most intents and purposes, imaginary gold is just as valuable as physical gold. Story 26. The chaotic United States withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2022 left the Taliban in control of the country with billions of dollars of United States equipment. This action was deliberately intended to disrupt China's trade routes in Central Asia and divert their attention from Taiwan. Story 27. All Olympic athletes are doping as much as the Russian and other banned athletes, but they are working against regulations to avoid detection. The World Anti-Doping Agency may be either bribed or protecting profitable athletes from being banned for doping. Story 28. Money does not actually exist. It is only a series of ones and zeros on hard drives, which are only as good as their power supplies. The only reason we believe it has any value is because we are told that it does, and we mindlessly agree and enslave ourselves to it. Story 29. For me, it's a lot of what happened on September 11th. The size of the hole at the Pentagon, the fact that no high-rise in history had ever collapsed due to fire, and yet it happened 3 times in one day with one of the buildings not even being hit by a plane. Additionally, the Federal Aviation Administration inspector in Pennsylvania asked why they had called him out, because what he was looking at wasn't a plane crash. Story 30. Epstein did not kill himself, and there are people in positions of power preventing the release of the list because he is on it. Story 31. I believe that environmentalists who engage in actions such as throwing soup at paintings are being used by oil companies to tarnish the image of environmentalism. While there are certainly some extreme individuals within the environmental movement, the notion that throwing soup at art will gain support is misguided, and most people understand this. Story 32. The chief executive officer of the voting machine company, Diebold, promised to deliver Ohio to George Bush in a public statement. After Bush won Ohio, an analysis of the precinct data found an unusual number of results ending in the digit 7. It is well known that when humans attempt to randomly select numbers, they often choose too many 7s. The 2000 election was compromised. Story 33. There are a few theories. The idea that Epstein didn't kill himself is one of the easiest to acknowledge. I also believe that Oswald didn't act alone. He was not solely responsible. Additionally, the US government was involved in creating the Unabomber through a program known as MKUltra. Story 34. That we live in a sort of matrix. Seriously, with the way our science is advancing, who's to say we aren't part of a computer experiment or some type of simulation designed to test and solve a problem that more advanced civilizations are currently facing? We are already creating sophisticated computer simulations and artificial intelligence ourselves. And what happens when we have powerful quantum computers in the future? Maybe we will want to create a simulation of humanity, set the speed to a very high amount, present them with problems, and observe how they solve them to help us address some of our own issues. If we are considering this, and if we have the capabilities in the future, couldn't it already be happening to us? Perhaps that's why there are some questions that feel unanswered, as if we are missing something. Maybe they coded that out so we wouldn't discover it. I don't know. It's just a thought. Are we essentially part of a game that a more advanced civilization is playing? We love games. We want them to feel real and believable. And with technologies such as game engines, we are now able to create images that most people initially think are real video or games. What will happen in 10, 20, or 200 years? Again, what if we develop quantum computers that can manage such worlds? Combine that with a deeper understanding of the brain, and it seems possible that we could upload our minds into a game at some point. It's a bit far-fetched, but with the pace of technological advancement, I cannot dismiss these ideas as impossible, so I will keep an open mind. Story 35. Modern medical education is influenced by the same companies that create the problems and also provide drug solutions. Story 36. Honestly, I treat any theory suggesting that the government is lying to us as true until proven otherwise. This is mainly because many things that were once dismissed as conspiracy theories have been proven true decades later. The major concern for me is the forced sterilization of undesirables. We know it happened, and I doubt that it has stopped as they claim. The official documentation states that they ceased this practice in 1985, but my mother was sterilized against her will in a manner very similar to many of the reported cases in 1987. She went in for an appendectomy and woke up to a nurse informing her that they had forced the removal of her ovaries and 3/4 of her uterus. I also wonder if the abortion debate is connected to this issue. It seems to me that it could be easier for them to bypass sterilization entirely and simply encourage undesirables to abort or avoid pregnancy altogether. We are all aware that Planned Parenthood was founded by a xenophobic eugenicist. I wonder if they are still promoting her ideology, albeit less obviously. I am curious whether the political debates surrounding abortion are part of this agenda. Story 37. There is a man named Jeffrey Epstein, and I have a suspicion that he might not have actually killed himself. Story 38. Humans came from Mars and significantly impacted the planet. The radioactive red dust is actually full of human remains. It would be interesting to see Elon's anguished expression when he discovers the first skull from the cold, desolate landscape. Story 39. World Systems Theory. Story 40. Creature from Jekyll Island. Machiavelli himself would be amazed by the power it has achieved. Story 41. Government, please legalize cannabis. It's the right thing to do. This will guarantee re-election. Tax us at 25%. That's a significant amount of money for the state. Come on, Greg. I appreciate your support. Story 42. A wealthy man in my city was intoxicated and drove his car through a house, resulting in a fatality. The conspiracy theory suggests that the prosecutor charged him with murder, which requires premeditation in my state instead of manslaughter, because he believed the jury would not convict him of murder. Story 43. The government discusses unidentified flying objects and extraterrestrial life to observe how publicly released misinformation spreads and is accepted by the public. This is likely correlated with taxpayer funding of the associated military branch. Essentially, the Air Force will never admit that it has no evidence of alien spacecraft because such claims garner support for additional defense funding against that perceived threat, regardless of its existence. Story 44. My brain will always be skeptical about the September 11th attacks involving the plane that hit the Pentagon or the collapse of Building 7. Story 45. I dislike even admitting this because it's sensitive, but something has always felt off about the plane that hit the Pentagon on September 11th. There's no video available. I read somewhere that an amateur pilot could not have aimed the plane so precisely to strike the first story of the building without any skid marks on the ground. I suppose I just crave more information about it. Story 46. The government is influenced by hidden powers, which are acting on behalf of wealthy global interests. Story 47. The wealthy individual who donated $4 million in gifts to Clarence Thomas likely anticipated receiving something in return. Story 48. I tend to believe conspiracy theories over mainstream information, but one specific theory I think is true is that the quality of products is declining, forcing consumers to buy replacement products more frequently. For instance, light bulbs have decreased in quality, meaning they break sooner and prompt people to purchase them again sooner. One theory that many may consider crazy, but I wholeheartedly agree with, is that the events of September 11th were an inside job. Story 49. Little money is put towards researching and developing a cure for cancer because it is more profitable for the medical industry and oncologists to continue treating it in the same way it has been for decades. Story 50. I believe Ukraine or a supporting country caused the Nord Stream explosion. Nothing else makes sense. While I am pleased it happened, I do not think it was the Russians. Story 51. The lost centuries theory suggests that the church altered the historical timeline, pushing the date forward by several hundred years. Story 52. Big Mike. Climate change is not real. Biden is dead. The election was rigged. The Twin Towers incident was an inside job, along with the JFK assassination. Celebrities and Democrats are Satanists, and that is why they want open borders for human trafficking. Alex Jones has been right all along. Story 53. Lucy Letby was blamed because the government needed to appear strong on crime. Children died, so they found a scapegoat. Story 54. I personally like 3 theories, even though I really believe in 4. However, I don't think the 4th is a conspiracy theory. The one from the movie The World's End, which suggests that aliens arrived in the 1970s and 1980s and are responsible for every major technological advance since then, while remaining hidden. Epstein did not kill himself. Every time there is a major scandal, such as the Panama Papers, the 1% who own the news channels and would be affected make a quick joke about it, then pay someone to generate other attention-grabbing headlines. Benjamin Netanyahu is intentionally prolonging the Israel-Palestine conflict and sabotaging peace talks to keep himself out of jail, similar to how Donald Trump is running for president. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.